If you say the words high school Spanish to me, I immediately think back to my first day of high school Spanish. Boom! Conjugation charts were being drawn on the board left and right. Pronouns everywhere. Formal, informal, say this in Latin America, but not this. Oh my god. I don't think I even knew what conjugation was in English. There was no way I was understanding those crazy charts in Spanish. Some people laugh or snicker when I say that I didn't even know what conjugation was. Maybe I heard it and forgot. I wasn't the best listener or student, but to me, it makes perfect sense. I mean, we don't really have conjugation in English. I know technically we do, but not really. Check out this conjugation of to eat. Notice something? It's eat in every single box except this one. So in English, while we do technically have conjugation, we don't have to deal with crazy charts because it's just one standard form, eat, with one exception, eats. Rule, exception. No chart necessary. Now, if you're anything like I was and you don't understand what I just said, you need to go back and watch the lesson called the infinitive and conjugation, where I explain what those words mean in depth. Okay, after my first day of Spanish 1, my most vivid memory of high school Spanish is my last day of Spanish 2. I walked into the room and Mrs. Taylor called out my name. Chimmy? My name was Chimichanga by then. In my school, we all got Spanish names, so Rachel instantly became Raquel, but there's no real good Spanish equivalent of Jordan, so instead of doing the sensible thing like just calling me Jordan, Jordan, or Jordan like they would in real life, I was given the Spanish name Hector. Yes, I was Hector Ellington. So nearly 2 years later, by the end of Spanish 2, I had firmly established myself as the class clown. So Hector went out the window, first making way for my favorite Spanish name ever, Dorito. Then, when I was no longer getting enough attention from that, I changed it to Chimichanga. Mrs. Taylor liked to just call me Chimmy. I like that too. So it's the last day of Spanish 2, I walk in the door, Mrs. Taylor calls me over. She doesn't look happy, not mad, like sad. She points to her gradebook right next to my name, and she says the words that brought me to you here today. You failed. Chimichanga Ellington failed Spanish 2. I tell you both these stories right now because one led to the other. My confusion that first day in Spanish 1, that confusion was a direct cause of my failure the last day of Spanish 2. If you think that story is sad, it gets even sadder. A couple months ago, I noticed a fairly large surge of new visitors on both my website and YouTube channel. At first, I didn't know the cause and didn't really think about it much. But then the comments and messages started to come in. Hello, I'm a sophomore in high school Spanish 2. I'm really struggling in my class. It feels like there are a bunch of missing pieces that I can't find or understand. I'm also having difficulty with conjugating verbs. I don't understand how to form the conjugates and when to use the different forms. And then another one. Spanish 2 is so confusing because I have so much trouble conjugating. I just don't know how to conjugate, period, especially stem changing verbs. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I got probably a dozen messages in a 2-week period all saying the same thing. So this video today is dedicated to any high school Spanish student having trouble with verb conjugation. This goes out to every confused college student, every single gringo out there in gringo land who's having verb problems. I'm not only going to tell you the 3 crucial mistakes I made, the 3 crucial mistakes most Spanish teachers, students, and courses make, the 3 crucial mistakes you're making, but I'm going to share with you the solutions I discovered to all 3 that took me from high school Spanish failure to gringo Espanol and can do exactly the same for you. The most common verb conjugation mistake also happens to be the most common mistake made in learning anything: a lack of focus. Learning verb conjugation is an impossible task. Nobody in their life has ever learned verb conjugation. It's too much. There are literally hundreds of different conjugations you need to know. That's why it's usually broken down into tenses: present tense, the past tense, future tense, all that other stuff. But even within the present tense, there are 3 different types of verbs: AR, ER, and IR, and all have different conjugations, but they're often presented together. That's too much at once. This hurts you in several ways. First, it makes the task seem so daunting. An extreme example: memorizing the dictionary is impossible, but memorizing 10 words is totally doable. Second, you won't learn anything very well. If you spend the day studying every word in the dictionary, you won't know any of them really. But if you just focus on the 10 words, you know them pretty intimately, and you could learn another 10 tomorrow. Third, when you learn something really well, it gives you context, which makes learning future stuff easier and faster. So verb conjugation conjugation is confusing. I get it. But take a look at this regular present tense AR conjugation. It's really not that hard. There are 6 endings, and except for this one, they all start with A, and this is for an AR verb. Do you see how knowing these conjugations like the back of your hand will help you immensely when you get to ER verbs? ER verbs have exactly the same endings as AR verbs, but they start with E instead of A. But how are you supposed to notice that pattern if you just kind of know AR verbs? It will seem like 12 different endings, but really it's just 6 with 1 letter change. Skipping to irregulars now, they're called irregulars because they're not regular. How are you going to notice the pattern or the difference if you don't even know the regulars well? But in high school Spanish, we glossed over what conjugation is and the infinitive. I had no idea that the infinitive in English is to, then the word, so the infinitive of eat in English is to eat. Then moved right into AR, ER, and IR conjugation all at once. Then before I knew it, all the irregulars and other crap came flying at me. At the same time, there were pronouns being thrown around left and right, which at the beginning are just as, if not more, confusing than conjugation. And all that vocab too. Can you say overload? I was doomed from day one. So what's my solution? Focus, obviously. Start from the beginning. It's really the only way. Make sure you know your subject pronouns. They're vital. You have to know their spots on this chart. Do not move on until you know the subject pronouns perfectly. Then and only then move on to regular AR verbs. Not ER verbs, not IR verbs, not irregulars, just present tense, regular AR verbs. Focus on them 100% until you have them down, until you can conjugate any regular AR verb you see in the present tense. Then and only then move on to regular ER verbs. This should be pretty easy now. Once you know AR verbs, you'll immediately notice the pattern with ER verbs. There's a very specific pattern. Then if you can conjugate ER verbs, you can basically conjugate IR verbs. There are just 2 small changes, but you won't notice those 2 small changes unless you know ER conjugations really well. By focusing on one type of verb at a time, not only do you learn that type much better, but you make learning future types easier, faster, and less confusing. Okay, you need to focus, you got that. But just focusing? What is that? The second biggest verb conjugation mistake, and this goes hand in hand with focus, is a lack of practice. You can't just watch a short video about regular AR verb conjugation and know how to conjugate regular AR verbs. It doesn't work like that. Conjugating verbs is a skill that must be acquired through rigorous practice. Just like a quarterback practices his passes over and over again, just like a musician practices their songs or notes or keys over and over again, you must practice your verb conjugations over and over again. So when you're focusing, you're actually practicing, or you're doing the wrong thing. The problem is most books teach you a certain conjugation, or worse, conjugations together, then have a few token exercises for you to do. That's not nearly enough. That's nothing. Right now, I'm going to share with you my 3-step process for conquering verb conjugation. If you follow my instructions, if you do what I tell you to do right now, you'll have your conjugations memorized so well, you'll find it hard to believe they ever gave you a problem. Did you just laugh? Roll your eyes? I probably would have too, but it's true. In fact, some people even scoff when I mention the word memorize. But let me ask you, what's 2 plus 2, or 2 times 2? You know immediately, in both cases, it's 4. If somebody said 2 plus 2 was 5, you'd know instinctively he was wrong. Instinctively. But didn't you originally memorize your addition and multiplication tables? And probably a long time ago. Even though you originally memorized that 2 plus 2 is 4, you've practiced it so many times since then, math problem after math problem, real life use after real life use, that you've internalized it. You just feel it. You don't have to recall the table. 2 plus 2 is 4. That's how it'll be with conjugation if you follow my 3-step process. There was a time when you had to think about what 2 plus 2 equals. Now you don't. That's how it'll be with hablas or hablan. You won't be able to imagine not knowing the difference the second you see those words. All 3 of these strategies are the exact strategies I naturally developed when I was learning Spanish on my own many years after taking it in high school and needed the practice. I didn't give them the fancy names until I started Gringo Espanol. Okay, first up, you need to learn the vocab. You need to learn the verbs in their infinitive form. It's hard to know how to say he eats if you don't know that to eat is comer. The best way to memorize words is the flashcard strategy. I'm not going to go into the details right now. I made a whole video with step-by-step instructions. The flashcard strategy will help you learn the words fast, but in a way you'll be able to recall them when you need them, and it's kind of fun. Actually, it's one of my more popular videos. If you haven't already, be sure to watch the flashcard strategy. The link is below this video. That's the first step, learning the vocab or the infinitive form of the verb with the flashcard strategy. Now it's time to learn the conjugations, but instead of going to exercises that have tons of different pronouns in them to confuse you, where you've got to worry about masculine, feminine, singular, plural, new vocab, it's better to focus, remember, on just the conjugations. The best way to memorize conjugations is the conjugation strategy. Again, I'm not going into the details here. I made a whole video dedicated to this strategy. The link is also below this video. This one is quite popular too. In short, you're placing the correct conjugation in the correct spot so many times, it'll be really hard for you not to know your conjugations. But just in case, and I don't have a video about this one, the third strategy is audio flashcards. Take an audio recorder and just read all the conjugations into it. You can use your phone to do this. So read hablo, then wait 2 or 3 seconds, then read I speak, then read hablas, wait 2 or 3 seconds, read you speak. When you play back your recording, you'll hear hablo and have time to guess I speak before hearing the correct answer. I suggest saying the answer out loud, but in your head is fine too. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, but to record 50 words like that only takes about 10 minutes, and you'll have the audio flashcards forever to practice over and over again. Okay, focus on one type of verb at a time and practice, practice, practice until you internalize it. Only then move on to the next one. The third biggest verb conjugation mistake is not having a goal or a plan. Which statement do you think is more likely to come true? I'm gonna learn verb conjugation, or I'm gonna learn present tense verb conjugation in the next 5 weeks. The answer's obvious, right? The more specific your goals are, the more they have a definite time frame, the more likely you are to achieve them. From there, break the goal into smaller goals. Start with just regular verbs. You've got to be done with the regulars the first week, so you have time for the irregulars in weeks 2 to 5. There are 3 types of regular verbs: AR, ER, and IR, so 2 days for each ending. See how getting specific makes your goals more realistic? You'll know if you're off track immediately instead of finding out at the end when you just aren't done. The second week, focus only on stem changing verbs. There are 3 types of those too: O to UE, E to IE, then E to I. So you have 2 days for each stem change. To sum things up, the best way to learn verb conjugation is focus on one verb at a time, and in this case, focus means practice until your brain explodes. First with the flashcard strategy, then with the conjugation strategy, then if you're a good gringo, you'll make audio flashcards. Finally, you've got to do all that in a specific time frame. Have a specific goal, otherwise it most likely will never happen. Now, it just so happens I recently released a premium course called Verb Conjugation Boot Camp Present Tense Edition. I created this course around everything we talked about in this video. I did all the hard work and all the legwork for you. All you have to do is follow my instructions. The course itself focuses on just present tense conjugations. Then each module covers one type of verb. First regular, then stem changing, and so on. Then each lesson within a module is all about one form. So AR in one lesson, ER in the next, just like we talked about. All the lessons have a video done in exactly the same style as my free videos on YouTube. So if you like those or this, then you'll love the videos in Verb Conjugation Boot Camp. But then I give you everything you need to practice: a word list for making flashcards easily, you don't have to hunt for the words, conjugation sheets and answer keys so you won't be flipping pages or going from website to website, and you also get hundreds and hundreds of exercises and activities to do focused only on conjugation, no confusing pronouns or other grammar. Not to mention the audio flashcards are all made up for you. Just click a link and play. No need for the voice recorder or any of that stuff. I've done it all for you. And to help you with the whole goal time frame thing, I give you a specific track to run on. The course is a 5-week course. You'll get module 1 and 2 right away. Module 1 is getting started and module 2 is regular verbs. So for the first week, your job is to focus on the basics and regular conjugation. Then a week after you enroll, you'll get an email with a link to module 3, stem changing verbs. You'll have the whole week to focus on just stem changing verbs. Then the next week, another email with a link to module 4 will arrive, irregular groups. Spend the whole week focusing and practicing irregular groups. Then the next week, module 5, just plain irregulars, and the last week, module 6, other present stuff. If you're having problems with the verbs at all, click the link below and check out Verb Conjugation Boot Camp. You can enroll right now and be watching your first video within minutes. And you'll find no Rosetta Stone prices. I'm intentionally keeping the prices of all my premium courses affordable to make them accessible to the most people. Get this course. In 5 weeks, you'll know all the present tense conjugations, regulars, irregulars, all of them in 5 weeks. Click the link below to get started right away, and I'll see you next time. Hasta luego. Adios, amigo.